Hello everyone, and welcome to a Chair League game tonight between Sinister 6 and Better Than Yesterday. Just a best of one match here on Dragonshire. So to start things off, I want to thank both of the teams for playing just a little bit earlier. I had a scheduling conflict between a game happening after this, and they were kind enough to move their game forward so that I would be able to do both games. So I want to thank them for thank both of the teams for that really quickly. Now on to the draft. We see the Nexus's new Lord and Savior Murky already getting banned out. Murky has been quite the menace as of late after his new rework. I never thought I would see the day that he would be first ban, first pick material, but the gods have frowned upon the Nexus, and here we are, and Murky is the first ban. Followed very quickly by a Ragnaros ban. Not at all surprising. Ragnaros has been banned all the time in basically every Chair League match I've drafted. He's very powerful in team fights as well as lane pressure. He's good at everything and is hard to deal with, and I think that's why he's just kind of taken off the table at the beginning of most of these games. After which we saw the first pick Malfurion coming out for Sinister 6. Also not at all surprising. Malfurion considered, with the exception of Lucio, who is sporting a really high win rate right now, to basically be the best support in the game. So a high prioritization on him is not at all surprising. Followed up by a double warrior pick from Better Than Yesterday. This is actually interesting. I'm not at all surprised to see an early pick Dehaka or ETC on this map, considering the power that globals have on Dragonshire of being able to sneak those objectives, as well as Dehaka's strong laning presence in the top lane. But grabbing both of them this early, that means that they either just really want to make sure they get both of them, seeing as especially how ETC is a fairly good counter to Dehaka, or if maybe they're trying to conceal what they're going to have on their back end, like who their support's going to be, who their assassins are going to be, knowing they want these two tanks. The obvious consequence of drafting two tanks early, and there it is right there, is that it does kind of let the other team pick up Tychus before the next ban phase, so they do decide to do that, draft the Tychus to help deal with the double tanks and not have to worry as much about breaking through a front line. And they also pick out Artanis, which is an interesting pick. He's been very popular, especially after his rework and the amazing playmaking capability of the new Phase Prism. So we do see the Artanis come out. I'll be curious to see whether or not they decide to back that up with another frontline character, someone who is a little more CC heavy, can sustain a little bit more punishment without having to rely on Artanis' passive and always having to be in the fight, or if they decide to just have that Artanis solo tank. It looks like Better Than Yesterday is thinking kind of the same thing, recognizing that Zarya and Artanis is a fairly powerful double kind of off tank comp, and so they take that off of the table. And it looks like, and not at all unsurprising, that Sinister 6 is going to look for a bit of a support choke, seeing as how they picked Malfurion themselves, and they already see that the opponent has two globals, so they don't want to allow them complete global pressure, currently thinking about the Brightwing ban. If they are wanting to ban out supports, the other kind of obvious choices, we'd be banning something like a Rhaegar, considering he's very popular as of late and is fairly good in tank comps, especially after you get Earth Shield at level 13. Banning Lucio, obviously, they may just not be thinking about that. They may have a plan to deal with Lucio if he's drafted. Banning out someone like Kharazim, even though he's a lot less popular in the lower leagues, is still very powerful when in the right hands, and it looks like they go for Falstad instead. So they realize there are a lot of support options available, and instead of going, okay, we'll just ban one of these supports, it's probably not going to change too much, they restrict the other end of the global spectrum. They're like, we don't want the enemy team to get an entire global comp, so we'll ban out the Falstad. This is also good if they decide to go with a more heavy initiation for a second frontline, so something like a Varian, for example, and they don't want to Falstad to just gust them away if they manage to get a solid initiation. So looking at Better Than Yesterday's draft right now, obviously the only thing they have is their front line, which means that they need their damage and their support. And here they are right now. So we have Jaina, which they are picking as their burst mage, and they're go ahead and locking down Rhaegar as support. Picking Rhaegar in that rotation kind of gives me mixed feelings, because on the one hand, maybe they're trying to conceal what this final pick is. Maybe it's going to be something wacky and they don't want the enemy to be able to counter or react to it. But at the same time, if there was something, like if there was a damage character that they really wanted to prioritize, apart from just Jaina, they really don't have to worry about Sinister 6 picking away Rhaegar, considering they already have the Malfurion. So depending on what they go with at the last pick, or maybe they're not quite sure yet, and maybe they want to play reactively. So just an interesting thing to observe there. We see the final picks now coming out for Sinister 6, and they do pick up the Varian. I do think this is a smart choice, especially if they decide to go the taunt build. They need a little bit of extra frontline. They pick up the Gul'dan to round out their comp. And looking at the Zeratul pick, I do think they decided that it was a combo. I'm a little surprised I didn't see it earlier, so this was well played in the draft phase by Better Than Yesterday. is that they picked the Jaina, and kind of the obvious go-to with Jaina is you grab Zeratul so you can get the Void Prison into Ring of Frost Wombo combo. But I wasn't thinking about it, and it seems like Sinister 6 might not have been thinking about it as well. If they had picked Zeratul up earlier, then it's a lot more likely that Sinister 6 would have picked a Zeratul counter, someone with reveals. They could have gone a Tassadar as a second support if they wanted to deal with the burst damage, because that still pairs well with Tychus. They could have gone something a little more wacky, like a Valera. Valera's actually been drafted to some degree in the competitive scene as a counter to Zeratul. You wait for Zeratul to go in, Valera is stealthed nearby, and locks Zeratul down after he jumps in. So I really like that drafting strategy coming in from Better Than Yesterday. I think they knew that that's what they wanted to do at the very beginning and decided to conceal that to the last possible moment. Hey, it's a pun because Zeratul's stealth. Anyway, conceal it to the last possible moment so that the enemy team would not be able to react and draft. So we're getting right into the game. Some quick words about Dragonshire. It is personally my least favorite map, not to cast, but just to play on, because it can be very frustrating, especially when you're, like my friends and I, when we play, are very team fight oriented. And Dragonshire really doesn't feel that way. It's almost like an internal game of cat and mouse. It's like always like, well, I'm at this shrine, well, they're at that shrine. Well, if you're losing, they can just run around and take whatever shrine you're not on, and it just makes it like super hard to get the Dragon Knight, and even then the Dragon Knight is still largely considered to be one of the weaker objectives in the game. Like, it's really hard to end the game with a Dragon Knight unless you get a bunch of kills on top of it, or it's like 40 minutes into the game. So hopefully the game won't go that long because I've got another one to cast after this, but it could happen. It is Dragonshire after all. So we see a little bit of skirmishing going on in the mid lane. Neither team really wants to commit, especially not Sinister 6, considering they do have the Varian, and Varian is basically just Olaf in the early game. He barely does anything until level 10, so they're going to have to kind of play it safe, especially against the Zeratul, who can jump in and cause a lot of damage to unsuspecting people. So we see Dehaka already rotating top lane as well as Artanis. Artanis isn't really considered to be the strongest solo laner, but at least in melee lanes, he can usually keep his phase shield up pretty regularly and isn't worried about getting poked out the same way as if he was laning against the Titus or something. So we see the 4-man rotations for both teams. Looking at them, I feel like the 4-lane rotation for, as far as wave clear is concerned, is stronger than Sinister 6 because of their like just immense wave clear thanks to Gul'dan. But at the same time, like the Rhaegar, initiation by Varian onto Rhaegar, but he is only level 2 and does not yet have Warbringer. Based on the fact that he went with the Lion's Maw talent, I do think it's pretty easy to say that he will be going for the taunt build, which makes a lot of sense considering it's the most popular as of late and really complements their otherwise frontline weak comp. So as I was saying earlier, I do think that Better Than Yesterday has sufficient wave clear, mainly due to Zeratul's cleave and Rhaegar's lightning shield, but at the same time, if Zeratul's helping your wave clear, he's not working on ganking. So both teams right now are, I think, kind of at a stalemate. Although I will say in a direct just brawl fest, Artanis will be able to knock Dehaka off of the shrine. There's no way Dehaka has the sustained damage necessary in order to kill an Artanis, but there's a lot of pressure going on the Tychus in the bot lane. It looked like they almost had him. And so it's really interesting to see that decision for them to fight so aggressively here, even though they were 3v4, and they did manage to get away. A shout out to the people in chat who notified me that my cam was still on. I appreciate that. Sometimes you can be a little forgetful. Anyway, initiation on the Zeratul, but he does have his blink up and is able to get away. Taking another peek back top lane, I'm actually a little surprised that Dehaka is doing this well versus Artanis. Dehaka definitely has the advantage when it comes to wave clear, but even though he has a lot of sustain on his trait, it's very difficult to compete. Oh, initiation onto Varian by ETC, a solid power slide. Malfurion doing his best to keep him alive. He's getting body blocked by his own teammates there. Gul'dan going for the kill on ETC, but luckily for Varian, that was not sufficient for the enemy team to get the final blow. So it looked like what might have been a little bit of an almost misplay on both teams. Oh wow, a good corruption going down on the ETC. He takes a lot of damage, and despite the fact that he is healing, he still goes down thanks to that DOT from Gul'dan. Really powerful, the amount of corruption damage going on. Whoa, Jaina goes in trying to kill the Gul'dan, but Varian is there and is able to initiate with that Warbringer and its reduced cooldown. And Jaina, while going for kind of a cheeky counter kill, ends up getting picked off as well. And this is a pretty notable advantage in the early game for Sinister 6. We see that Zeratul has kind of been forced to go up top lane, realizing that his allies were dying in the bot, just trying to soak the lane. Dehaka was able to recapture the top shrine, so they have a bit of a respite, at least for now. And even though the XP lead is half a level this early in the game, it's not really that impactful, especially considering it's not even giving them a talent lead at this point, and there's plenty of time for it to go either way. Artanis moving back in to try to take the shrine. I don't think Dehaka will be able to defend it. Rhaegar initiating onto the Malfurion. They're all low health, but ETC is not able to get the full initiation, and they will be happy with just taking the shrine. Peeking again top lane, it does look like Artanis was able to take the shrine. One thing I will notice is that Varian has actually gone to clear mid, and so they're actually mounting what was a 3v4 defense here. Jaina has gone up to soak as well. And so even though they're not fighting super aggressively for the Dragon Knight, Sinister 6 is doing a good job of trying to maintain this EXP lead, like still managing to keep it roughly half a level. As long as they don't give away any careless kills before Varian hits 10, they should have a pretty easy time of getting the first Dragon Knight if they manage to be the first ones to get their heroic abilities. Power Slide by ETC does not make contact with any target, and this is something that I actually like about this backline composition that is going against the ETC, is that they're able to play things very safe. Zeratul goes in looking for, I don't know exactly if he was trying to kill someone, if he didn't see the other teammates, but as he was taking a lot of damage. Jaina going in for the interrupt is able to stall long enough. Power slide by ETC, but he's really low already. Tychus applying a lot of pressure, but he is able to get out and goes down. Mouth almost gets Zeratul with the root, but Zeratul, good reaction time, is able to blink away. So that's a really impressive turnaround from Better Than Yesterday. I could have sworn that when that ETC initiated with barely any health left, he was just going to get mowed down by the Tychus, who does have him the rhythm at this point. And it's very difficult to play tanks into Tychus just because of that sustained pressure he can apply when his trade is up. So really good play there from Better Than Yesterday to kind of even out this XP lead just a little bit, as well as preventing Sinister 6 from getting the Dragon Knight. It looks like the Shrines are now actually both going over to Better Than Yesterday, but Artanis is coming back up, and Dehaka will have to stall him for quite some time if he wants his team to be able to get this. Even though Artanis is low on health, he's still ticking back up from tapping the well, and does have that kind of constant healing, quote-unquote, from his passive, so Dehaka decides to back off. He's going to go tap the well himself and then fight for it again. We see just another brawl going in on the mid lane. This is another thing about Dragonshire, is that unless one team gets a bunch of kills, it's very difficult to take an objective. It's not like Battlefield of Eternity or Infernal Shrines, where eventually one team will get it no matter what. There's kind of a timer. This can more or less go on indefinitely until one team manages to get a lot of kills. Initiation by Varian. ETC power slides in once again, but he is always just a little too low, and a good execute coming in from Tychus. Gul'dan goes down. And Zeratul, actually thought it was Zeratul that had blown up for a second there, but Zeratul, good job with the counter kill, helps to even things out a little bit. So it was a good initiation by Varian, forcing the ETC to come in and try to counter-engage, but ETC has just been taking a lot of poke from the Tychus and the Gul'dan, and the Rhaegar healing is just not enough, even in conjunction with Guitar Hero, in order to stay alive. Something that I want to just make a quick note of is that I've noticed a lot of ETCs lately in Chair League have not been going the Echo Pedal talent. Personally, I consider that talent pretty much a must-have because it enables ETC to wave clear, especially if you're going stage dive. So I'm wondering if maybe him not choosing that talent indicates that he might be looking for a mosh pit instead and won't be split soaking at any point in the game. I will also kind of note that Dehaka, I mean, it's not at all surprising. I got jumped top lane real quick. Hold that thought. Fight going down here. Malfurion almost going down. He does end up dying. Good work from both Jaina and Zeratul, just applying a lot of pressure. And then once again, we're not level 10 yet. Zeratul does not have the peel that he will once he has taunts, nor the survivability. And so the XP has now been completely evened almost, and contrary to what I was thinking earlier, Better Than Yesterday has managed to turn it around in the early game, even getting a pick on Tychus here, since Malfurion is not there to help keep him alive. And even though Gul'dan is putting out a lot of poke, this does actually secure an EXP lead for Better Than Yesterday, as well as the Dragon Knight, which this early in the game probably won't amount to much. They'll get a couple front walls, and something I want to mention here, since it's relevant at this point, is that Tychus, another reason he's really strong on this map, apart from just the fact that, oh, I may have spoken a little too early, a good initiation coming in on Varian, but it's not quite enough to get the Rhaegar, even with, oh, I changed my mind, it is Gul'dan, does manage to get him down with the solid fear. Mosh pit going down on Varian. We do note that he was holding that, and Gul'dan, while trying to kill the ETC, stays a little too long. I didn't see what that was, but something did manage to get the kill. It looks like it was maybe the Dragon Knight's fire or something was managed to kill Gul'dan. So what was initially a good initiation by the Varian, they did not quite have the burst to follow it up. That is one thing I will say that does seem to be a bit of a weakness for Sinister 6's team, is that Varian is very much use this character to lock someone down and kill them immediately, but all of their damage is over time. Like, even if it's quick DOTs like Gul'dan and Tychus, they still don't have the means to just burst a character down in like I think it's 2 seconds they have with the combination of Varian's abilities. It just doesn't quite seem to be there. But anyway, Tychus is really strong on this map because of the fact that his trade also procs on the Dragon Knight, and so they have just an easier way of melting it down if it's used against them. And as I mentioned, even though they got a lot of XP from the kills that they managed to get on the push, They did not get it from knocking down a fourth. Varian trying to pressure the Zeratul. Oh, Zeratul, what is he doing? It looked like he was going for a Void Prison, but he gets taunted right before he can, and even though it does come out, the DOT from Gul'dan is enough. Good play from Sinister 6. Looks like Zeratul might have been a little bit ambitious. He really did telegraph that he was going for the VP there. And I also want to mention something I didn't have the chance to earlier, is that ETC was holding his heroic. This is something a lot of ETC players do. Partially so that they have the option, and then partially so the enemy team just doesn't know what they have. Held the mosh pit up until he had that nice one on Varian while they were pushing the bot for it. So EXP lead. Oh wow, Gul'dan is toasty. Even though ETC was feared, the power slide was already in motion, and he just took him out in style. And this is something I've seen happen a lot lately in Div 3 of Chair League, is you do kind of have the problem, and this is true in all levels of heroes, until you get to the really high competitive scene, is that people have a tendency to stagger deaths. Speaking of which, Ancestral almost coming out to heal the ETC, but he was, I don't know if he was too late on it, or if he may just have been out of range. ETC caught off guard, always just a little low from all of the poke, and he is blown up by the 3-man from Sinister 6. Gul'dan is now back up. As I was mentioning earlier, there is a tendency, really at all levels of heroes, except in the competitive scene, for people to kind of just not play as carefully as they should if they're down a man. Or like, in other words, despite the fact that someone's dead, they'll play like they have all 5 people, and we see that happen from time to time, and the response is usually someone being a little too far forward when their tank or their support isn't alive, and them getting punished for it, and then it's 4 people again and again and again, and it's just fighting this constant 4v5 because people aren't waiting for the team to get back up. Artana spots out the Zeratul, but does not manage to get the combo. Jaina, however, is here, as well as the rest of better than yesterday, and if there's one thing Artanis does not have, it's an escape, even with a change. But his life was not in vain. I did not notice that meanwhile, the other members of Sinister 6 had all migrated to the mid lane, and although Artanis died, they did end up getting the Dragon Knight for it. The question is, will they be able to get a lot of value out of it when it is still just a 4v5? We noticed that Zeratul is kind of sneaking around back here. I don't think that minion they revealed him, but that one might have. And so it's a question of whether or not they're going to initiate it on. Void Prison is available. And there it goes on all 3 members except for the Dragon Knight. Ring of Frost coming out, hits 2. Malfurion taking a lot of damage, gets off the Twilight Dream, but still goes down. Will they be able to kill? Ancestral on the wrong target, but it does not matter. Zeratul is still able to get away with a sliver of health. Lion's Maw was not off of cooldown, and they managed to get the kill. And so that's a Malfurion dead. And this is once again the thing about staggered death. This time I can't blame them because wow, good swap into a punt coming in, but unfortunately the target is Rhaegar. 3-man mosh pit from ETC. That has got to be a team wipe right there. There's Varian. There goes Artanis. Tychus is fighting for his life, does manage to take down the Zeratul, so good for him, evening it up just a little bit. He does go down as well. And now Gul'dan did not run away with the Dragon Knight, was trying to help his team, and is currently in the middle of... Oh, can he get the Q onto Jaina? He is unable to do so. It's just stun locked by the ETC and the Dehaka. And this is exactly what I was talking about. Malf was not there. They stuck around thinking, okay, we have the Dragon Knight. We can deal with this. But at the same time, even if you do have the objective, you're still down a man. And so they were able to get a strong initiation. And something you always have to be careful about when you're against the Zeratul is, like, don't underestimate the power of Void Prison as an initiation. Even if he wasn't invisible, he still has blink, and you can't not be hit by the prison if he puts it on top of you. And once again, just good follow-up from all of the members of Better Than Yesterday. The Ring of Frost from Jaina catching the 2 squishier targets. The Mosh Pit by ETC catching the rest and just completely obliterating him. I will notice something of interest here is despite the fact that that fight was unquestionably in favor of Better Than Yesterday, Sinister 6 is really honestly not that far behind. Like, it's only 1 level despite the fact that they just got wiped. So they've been doing a good job up until this point actually maintaining that XP through soak, through objectives, and other means. And they may be down a talent tier, but probably not for long. It doesn't look like that Better Than Yesterday will really have the opportunity to initiate again. I may have spoken too soon, though. Zeratul sneaking around, but the scouting drone from Malfurion does spot him out. But Tychus is too far forward. And Tychus, Malfurion staying behind to try to help him. ETC's power slide will be up soon. Void Prison from Zeratul. Ring of Frost hits, actually, wow, with a good dodge for both members there. And they actually turn it around, killing Zeratul. ETC is taunted, is unable to mosh pit. He goes down as well. That's actually an amazing counter engage from Sinister 6 there. I don't know if you saw that, but Gul'dan was able to barely step out of the ring, and Malfurion ice blocked the second that he wasn't in the VP and actually managed to dodge the root, which enabled him to kind of get out of harm's way, as well as avoid the damage so he would stay alive, and Twilight Dream the Zeratul, who was immediately feared by the Gul'dan, and there was nothing he could do. ETC had already committed, not realizing that they would have such a strong counter engage. And so, once again, both teams have done a good job of doing this so far, of taking what looks like an obviously good fight for one team, and just seeming to turn it around out of nowhere. The other team's initiation isn't quite as good as it needs to be, or it gets counterplayed, and they end up kind of playing themselves. The one thing that is still going in favor, apart from the EXP, of course, for Better Than Yesterday, is that they have done a better job up until this point, getting the mercs. So Artanis right now forced to go clear this top lane. The other 4 members have gone mid, I guess just trying to stay together, knowing that they're Zeratul's lurking about. Dehaka going top once again. And one thing, it's not, good drag coming in, but I do not believe that it really is that going to be that impactful, even with the silence. I guess Artanis is backing off because he no longer knows where the rest of the team is. But so Dehaka punishing Artanis, but really to no avail. Like, he's not going to get a kill on him. Artanis is Artanis. Anyone who's played him knows that if there's one thing he can do, it's sit there and auto-attack you till the ends of the earth. I guess he's just playing it carefully, not knowing where the Zeratul is. Possibly not a good initiation coming in from the Zeratul. Ring of Frost doesn't look like it hits any impactful targets. Twilight Dream, ETC is caught in the front, tries to mosh pit, but Tyga sees it coming, only Varian is hit. The Odin still has the range, ETC is unable to get away. Varian taking a lot of punishment, but has one of the highest health pools in the game and does not die. Dehaka jumps down, but maybe a little too late. Tries to put pressure on Gul'dan, but Gul'dan self-sustain is enough to keep him alive, and it looks like it will most likely be a Dragon Knight for Sinister 6. Amazing play from both teams there. I thought was initially going to be another good initiation from Better Than Yesterday, looking like a good Ring of Frost and Power Slide, but it looked like that Horrify from Gul'dan was enough to kind of throw off their positioning. And even with the VP getting on the back line, the fact that Tychus was not caught in it and ETC was already low really helped to turn the fight. It meant that ETC had to run away. He couldn't apply the pressure to help kill the Varian. And so what looked like it could have been a good fight turned into a 2-man loss for not a whole lot, and EXP has switched here. So what has been a game really looking to be in favor Better Than Yesterday up until this point has now been taken by Sinister 6, and all 5 members of Better Than Yesterday are up again. They still don't have most of their ults with the exception of Isolation, and Ring of Frost will soon be up. So if Sinister 6 really wants this, and they can find an initiation with an Artanis swap, this could be a keep. There's the swap right there. Dehaka knows that it's coming, stands a little far back. So Dragon Knight is almost dead at this point. Will they continue to try to pressure the keep? It's a very dangerous maneuver to do so, especially considering the amount of displacement that Better Than Yesterday has. They do decide to stay, and it looks like that without really any source of notable sustain damage. Notice there's no auto-attack based character on Better Than Yesterday. There's no Raynor, there's no Vala, there's obviously no Tychus, considering it's on Sinister 6's team. They don't have quite the same ability to melt the Dragon Knight, and so they do manage to get a keep with it, as well as secure the bottom court. Artanis a little far away from the rest of the team, but Tychus is there. Good nade, knocking back the Zeratul. A Void Prison was available, it looks like, but he didn't want to get it on just one person. But it does kind of feel like, oh, Power Slide from ETC. VP on 5 people. Varian jumped in. 5-man Ring of Frost, Mosh Pit on 3, but a good Horrify coming out from Gul'dan. Tychus almost goes down, but so does Dehaka. Ancestral Healing hits the mark, but Zeratul is almost dead from the Gul'dan damage. A lot of the backline is really weak for Sinister 6, but no one is there to finish the deal. And we are seeing what seems to be a minor weakness for Better Than Yesterday, is that even though they have the Wombos, if the Wombo doesn't work, that's it. They're done. They have nothing else they can do. Like, they don't seem to have the ability to secure kills if they don't get them in the first round. Even with a solid initiation, MVP of that fight really has to go to Gul'dan. Like, it was a 5-man Zeratul Void Prison, followed by a 5-man Ring of Frost. If I were ETC, his Power Slide might have been off cooldown. I've tried to position just a little bit better to try to make sure that he got as many members as he could have. So that may not have been possible with Power Slide down. But it really was the Gul'dan throwing out that Horrify and preventing the Mosh Pit from reaching its full duration that saved that fight for Sinister 6. I want to note something else really quickly here, and this is, at least it's my understanding, this is the current iteration. I swear every patch the way it works changes, but last time I checked, ETC can actually Power Slide into a Void Prison, and the Void Prison will not make it so that he's not Power Sliding. So in theory, you could power slide into a Void Prison, and the second that it's over, you actually power slide into the enemy team before they have a chance to react. So I don't know if that's the way it currently works. It's gone back and forth, but if that is how it currently works, I don't usually play with Zeratools, but that's what I would have hoped ETC would have gone for. But once again, he did use power slide as an attempt to initiation earlier, so it might still have been on cooldown. A lot of pressure going onto the bot keep. Dehaka looking for a fight, might just find one with Varian, not who he's looking for. A good cleanse coming out from Rhaegar might have been unnecessary. It doesn't actually look like Sinister 6 wants this fight, but you can never be too safe when you have a Varian and that just 2-second lockdown, especially because he followed up by a Horrify or other means of CC. The keep does go down. Excuse me there. The keep does go down, and it's just kind of furthering the lead for Sinister 6. They're very methodical about this, not being too greedy. I will note that the Bruiser camp that was earlier picked up by Better Than Yesterday looks like it will take the top for it. That will go a long way in helping Better Than Yesterday reach 20. And as long as they soak this mid lane and don't do anything too adventurous, they should be able to hit 20 before the next fight, which will really be their best chance to take something. ETC has the opportunity to take Death Metal, which will really help with their team fight if he gets picked off. We see the Storm Shield coming out for Rhaegar. It looks like Death Metal is selected by ETC, so he realizes that part of the problem is that he ends up dying in a fight if they don't immediately get a kill, so that's another opportunity for his backline to possibly get another set of cooldowns off. Rewind from Zeratul, just to increase that burst damage. So they seem to realize what their problem is that they just don't seem to have the means to kill someone. And so the additional burst damage from Zeratul after Rewind, as well as the potential CC from Mosh Pit, will hopefully alleviate that. Something I want to note from Gul'dan is that instead of going the Horrify bonus, he actually went for Demonic Circle, just really trying to avoid getting picked by the ETC or the Dehaka and not get out if he can. Initiation by Varian. Odin is coming out. Void. Is there the power slide? Ring of Frost. Looks like that may not be the iteration. He does get the Mosh Pit onto Gul'dan. The cleanse comes out on Malfurion. Jaina taking a lot of damage. I do not know if her Ice Block is up. ETC goes in to try to heal, but the back line of Sinister 6 is just decimating Better Than Yesterday, and they're doing their best to stay alive. Good drag on the Artanis, but Rhaegar is now also in trouble, does manage to avoid the root, taking a lot of punishment, but has his mount to be able to get away. A lot of ults were burned there, but surprisingly no one died, and that top bruiser is still pushing. The only problem is that poor little Rhaegar seems to be in trouble. I'm trying to click on him on the map. Will he be able to get away? It does not look like it. Too much CC. And so what was initially not a fight in favor of any one team, just a lot of ultimates spent, and Rhaegar does unfortunately go down. He was forced to retreat through bot earlier to try to escape, but he ends up getting blasted instead. So good fight from both teams. Unfortunately for Better Than Yesterday, Rhaegar was not able to escape, and this will most likely be a Dragon Knight for Better Than Yesterday. So it's unfortunate that that they lost a person in the fight, despite the fact they had a 20 lead, and Varian will be picking up the Dragon Knight. So this could be game right here. It's 21 minutes in. Dragon Knight, despite not being particularly powerful, is at a point in the game where he does start to do enough damage that he could seriously threaten core, especially considering the fact that Rhaegar is still dead for another 15 seconds, and so they will be defending a 4v5 without any keep except for the top one. So especially if someone else gets picked, this could be game. A lot of pressure going on the ETC from the Gul'dan damage. And that right there is most likely game. Death Metal coming out, but Malfurion cleanses him out of it. Ring of Frost going down on the two people. Zeratul and Jaina doing their best to try to kill someone, but the Storm Shield comes out from Malfurion and he ends up going down as well. Good swap on the Zeratul. Void Prison comes out. Ancestral is almost on target, but it's not quite enough. That's 4 members down. Now only Rhaegar is alive. And that will be game number 1 for... Well, actually the entire game, because this is best of 1. So game goes over to Sinister 6. A really good turnaround for them. They were never at a point where they were completely gone, but they did manage to really find what they needed to do. They learned how to counter-initiate. They managed to go in and put their... They knew what their team was supposed to do. It just took them a while until they hit level 10, until they had a couple fights, before they realized exactly how to counter what Better Than Yesterday was doing, and they managed to walk away with the win. A well-played game from both teams. I was impressed with both of the drafts. They seem to work out. Unfortunately for Better Than Yesterday, the lack of follow-up damage, if they were unable to get a kill, kind of spelled their doom, as the sustained healing from Malfurion, as well as the sustained damage from their backline, was too much for them to handle, and the game went over to Sinister 6. So thank all of you for coming out for this game. If you want to stay tuned for another 10 minutes, I will be casting another game between, let me make sure I get the names right so that nobody yells at me, between Early Bedtime Fogies and Something Heroic. So thank you all for coming out if this is all you're going to see. If you are going to stick around, I would appreciate you do so. I am going to reset the stream just really quickly because I don't know how all this VOD stuff works, and I want the replays to be separate if they're separate games, and the only way I currently know how to do that is to just stop streaming and then start streaming. So I will be gone for just a few minutes, and the next game will start at 8:40 Pacific time, 10:40 Central. And thank you all once again for coming out, and I will see you in a few.